Welcome into Attacking Third. This is your crew, Sandra Herrera, Lisa Carlin, and Darian Jenkins, and I'm Jenny Chiu here with you guys on this beautiful Monday morning. So much to recap. We have European weekend recap. All of those matches on DAZN, we're going to go through them. But first, let me hit you guys with a little bit of news, and I want to get everybody's take on all of this. The Swiss government has cut funding for the 2025 W Euros from $15 million, Swiss francs, not dollars, were initially earmarked. It has fallen to 4 million Swiss francs. This is insane because the men's Euros budget was 82 million. And now we're talking about going from a 15 million budget to 4 million. Lisa, I see you shaking your head. You are not happy about this.
Yeah, obviously, Jenny. I mean, this is terrible, frankly. This is absolutely terrible that they're coming out and saying months before this competition, yeah, we're actually not going to support it and put as much funding in there as we know we should. And as we know how much it deserves. I mean, what does this say about women's football in Switzerland, right? It says that we're not serious about it. It says that we don't really care and it's going to be fine. Whatever. You guys are on the back burner. You're an afterthought to us, especially when you think about how many other countries put a bid in and they wanted to host the W Euros and they didn't get them because Switzerland won. France, Poland, I think Scandinavia, they put a joint bid in as well. And Switzerland beat out those three others. And now they're just failing to even compete and to kind of live up to the standards.
Yeah, I don't know if any of us are going to have any different sentiment other than what like Lisa just expressed. I don't think any of us are going to come on here and say, well, that's understandable. Like, no, it's BS. It's like, it's absolutely disappointing. It's deeply unserious. It's offensive. It's disrespectful. Let's just go down a thesaurus of words to kind of express that. It's just like, here we go again. It's like, I think we chat on and off of camera about this kind of stuff, and we're all very proud to have jobs where we get to talk about women's soccer. We all love it, care about it so much, and we often talk about the fact that we unfortunately also have a job where we just can't come on here and just talk about like the soccer or the X's and the O's and just performances. Like there's a lot of times where we hop onto these episodes and yes, we have plans to talk about those, but we also need to carve out this time to talk about these sort of atrocities that also still constantly occur in the women's game. And it's not like we are taking time to talk about something that is happening in a secondary or lower division club in XYZ country. We are talking about the women's Euros. They're doing this at the highest possible stage. It's quite literally insane to me. Like, I'm sorry to even use that word, but it's just, no one can make it make sense to me that it is for some reason acceptable after having made these commitments, made these promises saying you're going to have this amount of investment and say, actually, we have to scale it back. We change our mind. Then what are you doing here to begin with?
Yeah, I think you really expressed the same anger that we all feel here, Sandra, but that begs the question of, should they reopen the bidding process? Because they did beat out, like Lisa said there, France, Poland, and a joint Scandinavian bid to host. If those countries are in a better position financially to go ahead and give those resources, would you reopen that to them?
I mean, is there time, right? Is there time? I mean, it's funny. Of course there's time because, again, it's women's soccer and we still are awaiting where the 2027 World Cup is going to be, hosted, so I'm sure maybe UEFA might step in and say, that's not impossible to reopen this up and find another spot. I mean, but that's equally disappointing to me. The concept that it's like, it's still a little bit of ways out and we can absolutely be nimble and shift things and pivot. I would love for that to not be the case, but I think that's the other sub question to that, Jenny, is like, is there actually enough time to do that? Do they reach back out to those other countries that made a bid?
There's 18 months until the Women's Euros, right? July of 2025. So next summer. Frankly, Sandra, I think that that's enough time. When you look at some of the other countries that have already put in bids, France has the infrastructure, the stadiums, and the ability to do that, in my opinion. And it's also if the country is willing, right, to do that, because now they realize that there's a lot of scrutiny on this because of the way Switzerland handled it and the fact that 18 months out, they said, oh, actually, we're just completely slashing the funding to practically nothing for this.
Yeah, I think they absolutely should open up. I mean, I agree with everything you guys are saying. And it's such a freaking shame. Like, we talked about the Euros and how successful they were and how many people tuned in and all of these players showing out and having the success that women's soccer we've always known it's had. And finally, it's gaining momentum. The world is hopping on. The world is tuning in. And then shit like this happens. And I hope the one light that could come out of this is that other countries, if they open the bid again and other countries are able to prove that they're really going to invest and say, well, we'll put the money in. Switzerland, you're going to cut all of the funding. Watch us do this. And then have to elevate the level. And it's going to make, in the future, everyone else is going to have to step up and really back putting in bids like this, because this is ridiculous. This isn't something that happens in the men's game.
I like how there's a little bit of like
18 months out.
I like how there's a little bit of like, they should be shamed and then we can figure out solutions. I love that.
Exactly. Shame.
No, but really, I mean, you say this doesn't happen in the men's game, Darian. Like the difference in money here is insane. 82 million francs for the European Euros. The men's Euros. And now to be trying to slash the women's to 4 million. I mean, you have to have money to host a tournament like this. So if they don't have it, I'm totally open to potentially opening for another bid and hoping that a country will put the resources down so that this can happen. Let's go ahead and move on because we all have the same opinion there. This is shameful. We're going to throw a little bit of rocks there at shame and try to find a better host there. Boo.
Tomato. It's not even tomato. Exactly. It's like boo, anvil.
Boo, click.
Reopen the bid. But off to good news. The U.S. women's national team, the youth, are on to the 2024 Women's U-17 Championship. They beat Mexico 4-0, and they outscored their opposition 32-2 during their title run to claim U.S.'s sixth U-17 CONCACAF title and the fourth in a row. This is massive news because this is something that we've been touching on Attacking Third is, do we have the youth systems in place to provide us with a full national team that is set up for success? This win is such a great thing. Sandra, I know you've been following the tournament.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of excitement around it just because you could take a look at the roster and just sort of be impressed and say there's a couple of pros technically on this roster already. And I know folks get excited about that kind of stuff, but I would also make the argument that coming out of this tournament, you have another question presented to you where you're like, is it possible that maybe there could be one or two others in this one as well? I know there was a lot of attention placed on Mel Barcenas and Pfeiffer as well. But coming out of this one, you got Kennedy Fuller as the top goal scorer in this game. I thought Maya Tiles had a really, really good tournament as well. It begs to maybe bring up the question was like, oh, okay, were there some scouts at some of these games? Are we going to maybe, see a potential path to pro for some of these players? I know that's such a big leap and such a deep question to ponder when you are such a young player, but we're seeing it at the pro level in the women's game in the United States, which maybe that's not uncommon in Europe, but we continue to see this trend move forward, especially out of big tournaments like this. So they had a very successful tournament. They lifted up their sixth ever trophy. I think that's wonderful. It's a CONCACAF specific championship. So I think there's that other side of it for me too, where I'm also looking at maybe some of the other programs in the region and saying, what are we looking at in terms of the investment and resources that are being put into the youth side of the game for some of these other nations who are being representative. I think we can have all of those conversations at once. Both of those things can exist. But, not to take away from, a very successful campaign for them. Congrats. Absolutely. All the way.
Yeah, Darian, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about how, maybe that transition between the U-17s and the U-20s hasn't been as successful as we've seen. Where is that disconnect happening?
I believe that disconnect is happening where there's no adaptation of the game from those two levels. I think the U.S. has always had a blueprint. Even, Jenny, like when we were in the system, there's always been that blueprint of this is how you play, this is how you press, it's a 4-3-3. and it's very structured. And we've seen that even with the full team. It's been the same story of, oh, is the game going to adapt? How tactically are they going to change? It's kind of the same thing we've seen at every level. And so I think hopefully with U17s having these massive wins, making history, and like some good news coming from U.S. youth and our teams sparks that. And I think with Emma Hayes coming in, that there's going to be that each level is going to have much more of a multidimensional tactical game, technical game, players that are more savvy than what we've seen in the history of U.S. soccer. I think everyone else in the world is just catching up, and it's starting at the youth level. You know, U17s can go in and smash these teams, outscoring 32-2 against their opponents. Those teams are going to learn a lot from those losses and come back in the U20 cycle, the U23 cycle, to the full teams, and have a chip on their shoulder and more wrinkles to their game than the U.S., who's kind of been bulldozing until it doesn't work. So I think that that's what's been the issue. But hopefully with, you know, the U17s doing so well, we start to see more layers to the game.
And so overall, the youth programs, right, the development of them, yes, in CONCACAF, and Sandra touched on this, in CONCACAF, looking at the competition is one thing, and to be able to say, yes, the U.S. has won their fourth consecutive CONCACAF U17 championship, which, of course, making it to that championship match qualifies them for the World Cup. But honestly, I think the real test comes at the World Cup, because that's where U.S. youth programs haven't been able to find consistent success. And that's where the rest of the world seems to be overtaking the United States specifically in how much investment they're putting into the youth levels and how much they're able to develop players, not just on the pitch, but their IQ of the game and their understanding of tactics and formations and how to switch things and how to overcome adversity. Because when you are kind of bulldozing teams, you tend to get a sense of confidence when it before the 30th minute for US against Mexico in this championship, you're up 3-0 at that point. So then there needs to be a next level, a next gear shift for them. And that test is going to come in the U17 World Cup for sure.
So I guess the biggest thing for me is that, yes, we see this disconnect between, yes, being able to beat these CONCACAF teams and then going to the World Cup. But there's also the disconnect between the age groups. So going from the U17 to the U20 to the full team, something that we've been talking about during Spain's program, or when we were highlighting Spain's program, they have the same style of play throughout the youth system, right? So you could plug into any of the teams throughout the system because they all play the same way and your role would be the same on the different teams. And when we have different coaches having their own philosophies or ways of playing at every level, so the U17 coach has a completely different way of playing than the U20 coach, you move over to the U20 program and, you know, you get pulled up because you're a better player or whatever. You now have to play a completely different style of play. Is that something that the U.S. should be making sure that they have under Emma Hayes, is a complete full structure from the youth level up and basically from the full team down with the same exact style of play so you can fit in every program and kind of know what US's style is? Sandra?
You know, I'm a little on the fence, you know, with that one, Jenny, just because of the year that we're coming off of from the senior level down, you know, and sort of the back and forth and the conversation that we've had around it. I mean, we heard coming out of that World Cup at the senior level that players weren't 100% sure on their roles in the biggest tournament of their lives, you know, and it makes you wonder if there's a little bit of a trickle down there at all. I think it's important, I think at that age, at that level, to have that structure, to have something definitive to help in the case of general development at the youth stages. But I do wonder if once you elevate that, once they're out of a U17 or into a U20 CONCACAF championship or U20 World Cup, when do you start to change things? When do you start to introduce the concept of different, like being able to have that adaptability, that flexibility in presenting different game plans, presenting, you know, different formations and testing out and seeing at the youth levels, you know, the soccer IQ that comes into play with players and their ability to be able to have that kind of interchange. So I'm a little I think I'm a little not sold one way or the other. I think all of it's important at this point.
Darian, since you've been with the national team, and obviously you talk about how the U.S. national team, we knew how the U.S. was going to play and what we needed to do. Do you think that that's something that has to be put in place when Emma Hayes comes through?
Look, I think what makes a great coach is that they do have some sort of blueprint. You look at coaches like Herrera, who you know how Barcelona is going to come play, but the thing that separates them and why they're so good is that they adapt in real time during a game. They have tactical and technical IQ to make changes and play off of what the other team is giving. And that is why Spain has been so successful, and England. They don't have just this one-dimensional way that they've been playing, which I think was the U.S., the full team's issue coming into the World Cup. So I think Emma Hayes coming in is going to be amazing, but she's one of the coaches that gets that. Also on this show, we've been hypercritical about the lack of great coaches that have come in and like unlicensed coaches. Now we're seeing that type change. We're seeing good coaches come in that have the credentials, that have the experience and the success from former teams that have had to have adapt in different leagues and different games. So I do think Emma Hayes is going to bring that, and that it's going to be a trickle-down effect into the youth teams, because that's how the U.S. is going to get back to what they're known for, which is kind of world domination, but it's going to look different than what we've seen.
Beautiful. Well, we look forward to what Emma Hayes brings to the table and how the teams kind of shake out from there. And you mentioned definitely needing more high-quality coaches in the U.S. system. All right, great conversation. We'll be sure to continue this when we talk about the U.S. women's national team in other episodes. Let's go to a quick commercial, and we'll be back with more European coverage. Welcome back into Attacking Third. Like I mentioned, we're going to go over those match recaps from European football. Cologne losing to Bayern 5-0, or Bayern winning 5-0, whichever way you want to say that. You know which one won. Wolfsburg 3-0 to Frankfurt. That's a W for them. Lyon and PSG draw. Lyon came into this match 10 points ahead of PSG, and there was a late own goal to make that differentiation. We'll talk about it. Napoli losing to Roma 1-0, and then Ajax 4-0 against Feyenoord, and Lily Johannes with a goal and an assist and a player of the match honors. Let's go ahead and get started with Wolfsburg against Frankfurt. Lisa, talk us through it.
Yeah, Jenny, I like this matchup. Wolfsburg wins 3-0 over Frankfurt, but to be honest, the scoreline is not at all indicative of how this match played out and how much of a battle it was for Wolfsburg. I think a lot of people could look at that scoreline and think, wow, Wolfsburg was able to just kind of run through and get 3 on the board. That was not at all the case. Wolfsburg took this game, I think, in like 20-minute segments, because once they started to get into the match and kind of understand how Frankfurt was going to press them, Wolfsburg did a really good job of building out of the back and then getting into their attacking end. They created chances. They had good crosses. Shout out to Jansdotter for her long throw-ins, because those were the most dangerous chances that Wolfsburg created throughout this entire game until the goals came, right? And ultimately when the goals did come. But in the first half, there was no clear chances from either side on goal. It was a gritty battle, both sides really trying to stay organized defensively. Wolfsburg, frankly, doing a better job of that against a Frankfurt side that looked pretty disjointed in their attack. Their forwards didn't have a lot of rhythm together. It was like one would check back for the ball and the midfielder looking to play it to them went long. So they were just off not on the same page throughout the first half by any means. It's 0-0 at halftime. Then in the second half, Frankfurt continuously playing out of the back against a really high pressure from Wolfsburg made me very, very nervous at times, because Wolfsburg just got way too close with their pressure and what they were able to do. But Jansdotter, her throw-ins continuously were the best chances. And ultimately, that's where the opening goal comes from for Wolfsburg. It's a long throw-in from Jansdotter. Stina Johannes, the Frankfurt goalkeeper, she ends up getting it before she falls to the ground. She gets hit by her own player, and it goes in the back of the net. So the first goal for Wolfsburg is an own goal on Johannes, the Frankfurt goalkeeper. Alex Pop got a little flick on after the throw-in. But once that opening goal came, the match just opened up. Frankfurt was able to get a few more chances. They looked a little bit more dangerous and threatening when they were going forward. And then the final 5 minutes is when Wolfsburg actually closed the door on the game. There was an insane strike from the edge of the box. Lena Leitien in the 85th minute, who influenced that first goal that came for Wolfsburg. And then ultimately a final goal in the stoppage time at the end of this one for Wolfsburg. But 3-0 at the end, Wolfsburg is definitely happy with that scoreline, but it was not smooth sailing for them throughout this match. They're going to have to continue to tighten things up defensively, make sure they're really organized, and that they finish their chances. That's been the Achilles heel for Wolfsburg all year, that they get chances, they're creating opportunities, but they're not finishing them when they need to.
Are they going to catch Bayern? Lisa, what do you think?
No, not the way that they play in this match, right? Like you think about it, against a Bayern side, they're not going to get as many opportunities and as many chances as they did, frankly, against Frankfurt. So you have to be able, if you get 1 or 2 chances in a game, to actually finish them and find the back of the net. I like that question, Sandra.
Well, it's because I'm with you. I had a feeling that was going to be your answer. No. But I'm with you because I kind of feel like Bayern's going to be on this like revenge tour a little bit after getting bounced from Champions League. I mean, they had no mercy against Cologne. So I wanted to ask you just to see if we were still on the same page.
You guys are always on the same page. Why are you even asking, Sandra? You guys are telepathic. I'm going to move over to Lyon and PSG. Like I mentioned, heading into this game, Lyon was 10 points ahead of PSG in league play. But I thought PSG had a great game. The PSG goalkeeper kept them in it, though. Okay, so like the biggest thing, the pronunciation here is going to struggle with, but Katarzyna Kiedzernek, the PSG goalkeeper, there was multiple opportunities where there was free kicks and corner kicks, and Lyon is getting, close range headers off. It's Lindsay Horan, it's Lesamer, like just very, very close to the goal, very quick reaction saves from the PSG goalkeeper, and there was 4 or 5 of them that absolutely could have and should have been goals, and she keeps them in the game. When we talk about Lyon's backline, they were playing like pretty high, which allows a through ball in for PSG, and that's exactly how they get a couple of opportunities, and then finally Chawinga looks to get in behind and gets that final goal. The goal was beautiful. I think she hits outside of her right foot. Outside of her right foot.
Left foot.
Instead of using her left foot. It looked like it was set up for her left foot and then outside of the right foot. Am I wrong, Darian?
Opposite. You have those switched. It was set up for her left foot, and she uses that.
I'm looking at myself in the thing, and I'm talking differently than what I'm supposed to. But yeah, it looks like it's set up for one of her feet, and she definitely uses the outside of her other foot to do the outswinger. I mean, trivela, beautiful. Tres dedos, whatever we want to call it, Sandra. It was gorgeous, but it was because Lyon was playing that high line and allowing that through ball to get in behind. They did it a couple times before, unable to score on the opportunity, and then Chawinga does get that beautiful goal in. But again, the goalkeeper keeping them in the game for PSG, and it's Cascarino's effort on the right side. If you take a look at the play, she leaves so many defenders out of the play with her dribble. I think she takes away 2 or 3 players there and then 3 on the cross. So about 5 players are out of the play and flat-footed because of that run in the cross. And then Elisa de Almeida gets caught facing her own goal, and she taps it into her own net. I mean, it's such a tragic moment because it's like the 90th minute. And they basically had the win there 1-0. Lyon was knocking, but PSG was getting saved by Kiedzernek. And it's really unfortunate because they held on. They played a smart match, but the goalkeeper was outstanding. That own goal has them draw 1-1. They continue to be undefeated on both sides, but no loss for either squad. But that is an important point for PSG, trying to catch up to the 10-point differentiation between Lyon and PSG. But really, all they're doing is separating from the rest of the pack because Lyon is just so incredibly dominant. So that was an interesting one for us. I really enjoyed the match. It was like so much fun to watch. Both sides going at it, different ways that they go at it. I know, Darian, you're nodding your head because you're very familiar with French football and how impressive those two squads are. It was really good to see PSG put a fight in with Lyon because those are pretty much the only two teams that are going to, go at it that way in the French league.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge rivalry. That game on the women's side and the men's side is really fun to watch, huge energy. I want to talk about one, Chawinga. I think she is going to be one of the best forwards in the world. I think she's just picking up steam in this league because the way that she moves on and off the ball is insanity. Everything's like this aggressive power, but if you go watch her goal, look at her face and how calm she is technically on the ball. She's never looking stressed or like she's fighting to sprint to get to a ball. She is so smooth, so eloquent. I think we're watching the beginning of the next forward superstar. I am fascinated by her game. Also, Lindsay Horan was giving life and limb in this match. Did anyone else notice how she's thrown her head into anything she possibly could have? And damn, she was a little bloody at one point, but I love it because that just shows what this rivalry is all about. So I thought it was a really good game. Lyon had quite a few chances that they should have scored, in my opinion. But you're right, Jenny, the keeper, was standing on her head. This was a weekend for keepers because I've got a couple other ones I also want to shout out.
Yeah, I think these are the games where you kind of look for those performances. I think we touched on it for a second where Jenny mentioned that it's kind of coming down to a typical 2-team race in this particular league. But even when you look at the bigger picture of things, the points split between the two of them in this game isn't really going to move that needle for right now, especially for PSG in the long term of trying to catch up to them. But in the meantime, getting to watch some of these outstanding individual performances, these are those kind of games where you take a look and you say, okay, like I see what you're cooking, what you're serving up here. Like let's keep it going. Let's maybe see that. I think maybe there are folks who tune into a match like this and like listening to Darian kind of speak a little bit about chewing gum. Maybe for that, it's another game that people could just sort of like put in the memory bank file saying like, yeah, this player is coming through. And of course, I mean, who doesn't like to add to the legacy of Horan in terms of throwing her head into those kind of challenges? But it was another. It
was giving Julie Ertz.
It really was.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It was another one of those games where you can kind of just pluck out these very like radical kind of individual performances. And I think when it comes to those rivalry games, that's kind of what you're looking for too.
All right, Darian, take us through Napoli against Roma. Roma getting that 1-0 win.
Yeah, back-to-back wins over Napoli. Roma, they looked great in this game. I thought, they created a lot of opportunities. They had 8 shots on target, 18 shots in total. I do think they could have finished a couple more, especially in the first half. They were serving balls in from the left and the right side, had some shots from distance, but Giuliano got the finish off of a cross as a kind of a half volley. She put into the back of the net. But they did look a little sus in the back line. There were some opportunities where Napoli were able to get through their back line, but lo and behold, the legend, Lena Lenari, always making the last-ditch saves and making it look easy, kept the ball out quite a few times where I actually think Napoli could have tied it up. But it was a really good game. I also think that Napoli's goalkeeper, Bacic, kept them in the game. I said, Roma should have scored a couple more. Standing on her head, it was a weekend for goalkeepers. She's one of the 3 that I wanted to highlight. But yeah, it was a good game. And Roma, I think, have such good momentum. And it was good to see our girl, Evelyn Viens, out on the pitch.
Awesome. All right, you talked about Roma right there. We're going to go ahead and have Evelyn Viens join us for an interview next. Welcome back into Attacking Third. We are so excited to welcome in Olympic gold medalist and Roma player Evelyn Viens to Attacking Third. Evelyn, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, you guys are top of the table at Roma. Tell me about your time so far and how you've been enjoying it.
It's been good. It's been pretty busy, not going to lie, with so many games. But overall, it's been good. I mean, we're top of the table so far. We did Champions League. We are still in the Cup of Italy, so it's good.
In comparison to coming off of the Swedish league, like what has, I guess, Italy been like?
I think the playing style is really different than what I'm used to, in a way of here people love to keep the ball, be in possession of it, and just really confident on the ball. In Sweden, I would say, was more physically different. I think it was a little bit more challenging, and in the way of people to tackle were different than here. And I think here, technically, people are really above what I've played with, and it's a great challenge for me.
Evelyne, you mentioned playing in all these various competitions right now. Of course, in league play with Roma, the Champions League, the League Cup. I want to ask how you balance that, because it is such a demanding schedule, and to have so many different games, whether it's the competition or your game style. How do you personally handle that many games and the volume of games?
It's a good question. I'm still trying to figure it out in some way. I think, this morning I was talking with Saki about how many games we have played since January 7. It was our first game in the Super Copa, and before national team break, I think we'll have played 12 games with a lot of traveling. So I think I'm just trying to give it all on the field, and when I go home, just like be able to think about other stuff, because it's a lot of football. I love it, but at the same time, you need to stay balanced. And yeah, I'm trying to find ways to help my body to recover faster and just be every game at the top. But I'm not going to lie, it's hard emotionally. Sometimes you play Champions League, and after in the weekend you play a league game that has a different intensity level, but you still need to be able to win those games.
Evelyne, you have such diversity in your really young playing career. You played in NWSL, France, Sweden, Italy, Canadian national team. What has each team and league or even country kind of added elements to your game? Can you share how that transition has been and how that's really evolved your game as a holistic player?
Yeah, I think that's a lot of country I've played in for sure. But I think the US NWSL, I was young when I got there. I didn't play much. I think I learned a lot about physically, how you need to be able to be good in transition, how you can just bring your style and implement it. So I think I learned a lot about what I need to improve as a player to be able to play in that league. I think in France I learned the technical aspect and with a mix of tactical. When I got to Sweden, I think I would say tactically I learned a lot. The coach was one of my favorite coach I had so far in my career, because how she will prepare the games, how she will make sure we were able to win. And I think here it's for sure technically I've been improving a lot, but people on the ball, especially the midfielder, are just confident and just are so agile.
Yeah, Evelyn, I want to maybe talk about some of your experiences on the international stage with Canada's national team, gold medalists during the Tokyo Games, and looking ahead for the program a little bit. The Gold Cup is coming up. They're going to have an opportunity to go ahead and maybe add some more hardware for the program. What would you maybe like to see for this team to kind of take those next steps in this cycle coming up for them?
I think we're not going to lie, this summer was pretty hard at World Cup. I think we had a high at the Olympic and we did not perform this summer, but since that moment that we lost 4-0 against Australia, I think we've been able to bounce back, being able to build a team that want to play a little bit more with the ball, just different formation, different style of play. And at the same time, we have been kind of turning a page with Sinclair leaving, some great veteran too. So I think it's a different leadership group coming up, and we're for sure going to be focused on the Gold Cup, and Olympic is not too far away. So I think we're in a good direction. We're building in a good way, and I think the values are still there. And what we did at Olympic was amazing, and we want to keep going.
There are a lot of changes happening within this Canada squad. As you mentioned, the retirement of legend, the GOAT, can we say, Christine Sinclair. And with so many international tournaments coming up, the W Gold Cup, and then of course the Olympics, how do you see your role on this team changing as a veteran?
It's a good question. That's a question that I hope I can answer more in maybe 6 months. I think I've been in kind of this bubble of in and out, and sometimes I'm there and I play. So of course, I think I carry a good experience here. I'm playing a lot. I'm playing different positions. So I just hope for this Gold Cup to go in and just bring my identity, bring what I can bring offensively, and show the coaching staff that I improve in so many aspects. And yeah, I want to be part of that team, help the team to win. And yeah, I think it's a good question, and I don't think now I can give you a perfect answer because I don't know.
Well, that's okay, Evelyne. We're excited to watch you and see how it continues to evolve.
Yeah, Evelyne, your game has definitely evolved, though. Even, the stats from you going from team to team, you've become a prolific goal scorer. You come on a pitch and everyone is expecting you to score, and you do. You show out. So I have to ask, as a former forward as well, what's your favorite goal you've scored and your favorite type of goal to score?
Oh, that's favorite goal. Okay, I'm going to answer the second part first because I think I'm such I think national team will always say that I'm not fox in the box, but like I just love to be in the box, receiving crosses, being there on the first post. I think that's my typical run. So any crosses, anything in the box I can finish. I love those finish. And favorite goal. Oh my God, that's a really good question. Thinking quick, I think maybe when just before the Olympic, that was my first start with Canada against England. I think I scored after 2 minutes, so the relief, the pressure just went out. And against England, I think 2021, that was one of my favorites.
I love that. Fox in the box. I'm just excellent energy. We heard you touch a little bit on some of your experiences playing in different areas internationally with Canada. Maybe let's talk a little bit about how developing your game comes to life alongside playing with teammates. You've got some pretty notable ones at Roma. Who have you enjoyed really playing with and sort of have kind of felt your own game changing while playing alongside them?
I think at Roma, the first one is for sure Saki Kumagai. How she is as a person, first, is amazing. She wants so much stuff, and she's the most humble and positive person I know. So just being able to do some exercise with her, technically, I'm learning a lot. She's not easy on me, but I really like working with her. And I think in Roma, I would say we're midfielder. The Italian, I didn't expect that, but they're so good technically and just they're small physically compared to a lot of people I play with, but the amount of their work rate and how they see the game, it's different for sure.
We talk about you going to all these different leagues and picking up different things. This is a little bit of a fun one, but what does your game day routine look like now? Because you've obviously experienced different players with different routines and picked up things along the way. What does tomorrow, before you play against Sassuolo, look like for you?
Honestly, since I've been in Roma, I kind of stopped having too much stuff because this team is the most superstitious team I ever play with. It's honestly can do an hour with it, and it's kind of like not mentally stable in my opinion. They follow so many steps. The last person that walk out of the locker room, she needs to be the last one, and she goes on the field in a different way. But I think for me, I'm in Italy, I eat pasta every time before a game, and after I don't do much. I think I go on the field and I just tell myself some mental word that I work with. And I think when I jog, I just jump on the line and I go. That's about it. I don't have that much game day routine anymore.
All right, you have to tell me what kind of pasta though, because the Italians eat a ton of pasta. My boyfriend told me that they eat like a little pie before for a sugar rush as well. What kind of pasta are you eating?
I eat the most basic stuff, and I wish we had it in Canada that tastes as good. Just pasta that they cook really like al dente, and after you have some red sauce and some parmesan on top, and that's it. It's the best thing. I can eat it every day, and it's so basic.
Evelyn, I know you play with Elena Linari, and I played with her in Bordeaux. I think maybe we might have missed each other while you were at Paris FC, but in France, they did sugar packets. Did your team do that too? Before a game to have energy, and I thought that was the wildest thing. I never. But they like do espresso. Like they drink so much coffee here, so much. Like every time, like we're done at dinner, and they just like time for coffee. And if you order a cappuccino after 11, you're going to get all the comments in the world that it's not okay to do. But no, I've never seen people doing sugar stuff, but. Their snack in the locker room at halftime, we have like parmesan, like cheese, like block. Like I don't know, like for me it makes no sense. But and we have like prosciutto. Like it's not what I'm used to.
That sounds amazing.
That sounds like a bougie snack.
Yeah. Do you eat it at halftime, or do you bring your own snack to eat?
I bring my own stuff, and sometimes people look at me, but I'm just used to it. But no, it's great. It's just like a different culture, but they're super professional and they do everything. Like if it works for them, it works for them.
Yeah. Hey, you're at the top of the table. It's working.
Change it up.
We're asking our producers to give us a little bit of a Parmesan cheese break eventually. Evelyne, thank you so much for joining us here on Attacking Third. It was a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you during the Gold Cup.
Thank you so much for your time.